Hi everyone. So I'm Jordi Boggiano, and for those I didn't meet yet, which is many of you, I'm from Belgium, though I live in Switzerland nowadays, and I mostly work on open source stuff, so I did quite a bit of Symfony development, and since a year and some, most of my time has been taken by Composer. So I'm gonna start with a few use cases, just things that come up quite often and people don't really know how to do them, even though most of it is documented, but I can, I'll read it to you. So first of all, one big thing I want to clarify is installing versus updating, because I think most people have been quite confused with that, like when should they run install, when should they run update. And I think the confusion comes from the fact that if you use pair, for example, you will you install a package, right? You just install one package at a time. With Composer, you work with the whole set of dependencies of your project. So when you run install or you run update, you actually run install or update of the project's dependencies as a whole. Then what happens is Composer will, install, update, or remove individual packages for you, but that's not really what you should think of. You should just think in terms of the whole dependencies. So basically when you run update, you will just update the whole dependencies to the latest available versions. When you run install, you just install the last known state from the log file. I hope this clarifies it a bit. Now, using a fork, that's also something I would like to clarify. Let's say you just find a bug in Symfony, you just create a pull request for it. That's good. And if you find it and fix it, amazing. But then, maybe for some reason, Fabian is not merging your pull request for a month, and it happens. So yeah, you might need to just use your patch. Like if it's a critical fix and your project is just borked without the fix, then you need to use your version. So you just add a VCS repository with your fork. So what you should do is, what you shouldn't do is change the package name, because I know it's your fork, but unless you intend on maintaining it forever and really forking the project, don't change the package name, because that will mess up the other project, the other dependencies that actually depend on Symfony. So it's another repository name. Here it's mine, but the package name is still Symfony. Because you create another repository, it will take over packages and just install from your version. Now, if you did things right, you should have your patch in a branch and not in a feature branch, not in the master. So you would require it like that. But yeah, there's a problem that most other dependencies will require Symfony in version 2.1 or something. So if you just require that, it's gonna just fail, and those nice outputs of failed resolution of dependencies that nobody seems to understand. So what you should do is alias it, so you can just require some version as another version. So in this case, what it's going to do is it will install dev mypatch, but it creates also an alias package that has a version 2.1.0. And so that will satisfy the dependencies of other packages on version 2.1. But it still installs the first one, right? It doesn't install 2 or anything. Okay, Satis, did anyone use that? Okay, a few, good. So that's something you can use for hosting, not really hosting, but having your own kind of little packages for your private stuff. So, typically, if you have private bundles or something you're reusing within your company, One, like the easy way, or maybe the most straightforward way, is to start off like this and just add the repositories. But then the problem is you end up adding those in every project. So it gets repetitive, and like if something changes, you need to change it everywhere. It's not really ideal. So what you can do with Satis is just take off, it's exactly the same, like the repositories, you just redefine them in this config file. There you have an example of how to like create a Satis setup, and that will basically create, like once you run the build command there on the last line, it will create some small repository that contains all your packages. So then what you can do is in your project, you just replace instead of having all those repositories one by one, you have only your Satis repository. So that makes it a bit smaller already and a bit more maintainable. But it's still kind of annoying if you have to add it to every project. So another thing you can do that's very not like... did anyone know there was a system level config? Yeah, so there is this system level config that nobody knows about except a couple guys. So it's just in your home dir, or on Windows it's in the application data stuff, fairly standard locations. What you can do in there is define extra repositories that will apply to like all the projects on your machine, and you can also change config settings, so like the process timeout and stuff like that. So in this case, once it's added at the system level, you can just require your private packages in your projects, and it just works. So all you need to make sure is that everyone in the company has this repository in their system config, and you're done. So I think now, compared to the first one, this is way leaner and should work better. Okay, another thing you can do with Satis is proxying. So, like if you don't trust packages to be up, which, I mean, it's not been so bad so far. We had one bad downtime, but it happens. You can mirror the data using this. So you have to define packages explicitly there, because in Satis it's just it's not present by default. And then you require all the packages you want to mirror. So if you don't require any by default, it's going to copy everything, which you might not want. Depends. But this, for now, only mirrors the metadata. So just like the list of packages and how to install them, etc. But you don't actually have the package data in there. So if GitHub is down, this doesn't save you. And lately, GitHub is down a lot. So we're working on that, but it's going to take a while. Just one last thing. Renaming packages. That's something that tends to happen when people just start off. They create packages, and then they're like, oh no, the name is not cool enough, and I want to rename it. Nowadays, you can delete your packages yourself on Packagist if they have less than 50 downloads. That's just like as a kind of prevention measure for avoiding that popular stuff gets deleted. But so one way to rename it is to delete it, submit it again. But what you should do if you want to be nice to other people is add a replace. So you have your new name, and you just mark replace all name, all versions. And by doing this, if someone was actually using your package, which it would be nice if you publish stuff that people use it, they still get the new package installed. Like it will still work. It won't break their setups, which is nice. So please do this. So branches. You may have noticed that the dev master version of Symfony, for example, is now it's 2.2.x dev. The way to do this is using this branch alias. So what that allows is that people can just require Symfony in version 2.2 point anything, and you can still install the master version. So that's good because it allows you to work on the master branch and on the bleeding edge, and just get problems and everything gets broken every second week. But it's if you want to do it, you can at least that way. So I think all package authors should define this ideally. So you just define basically what version your master branch is going to become. Yep. Then I just want to go through the whole flow of an installation or update and give a few tips along the way. So when we begin, there are just those scripts that fire, so the pre-install and pre-update commands. I don't think anyone uses that because before you even install, there is usually not much you can do, but it happens. So yeah. Then we load the root package. So that's your composer.json basically. And from that, if you're doing an update or on the first install when you don't have a log file yet, you just read all the requirements and create installation requests for all those requirements. So that just says, okay, I need this package with this version constraint, nothing fancy. If you update though, if you already have packages installed and they are dev packages, so following the master branch, etc., those we just force update them because the version didn't change. So that's a problem that it won't update by default. It won't create an update from the master version to the master version because it's still the same. But the actual commit changed maybe. So if it did, we just create an update by hand. When you install from the log file, since 2 weeks ago at SymfonyLive London, where I changed the log file format. Now the log file is a complete repository, so it's just it will load it, and it contains a set of packages with all the information. So if anything changed or disappeared in the meantime, your log file is the integrity is still fine, and it will just install. So it loads that as a repository, and then it just creates an install request for every package in the repository. That also means that it got much faster and to install from the log file. So just random fact. Then what happens is we create a package pool. So it's loading all the repositories you have into one gigantic pool with all the packages. Which is one of the reasons why right now it uses a ton of memory when you do an update. I'm also working on that, but it's not as easy as it sounds. So the first thing that's loaded is the platform repository. So that just contains your PHP version, your extensions, etc. If you want to list everything, you can use the show command with --platform, and that just lists everything that is recognized on your setup. So if you're missing something, or you're not sure why some extension appears to be not loaded, you can check with the show command. And if it doesn't show up in there, it's not recognized by Composer for some reason, which usually means your command line, the CLI configuration for PHP is a different one than your web one, and the extension is not loaded. But sometimes it's a bug, I guess. So afterwards, we load the local repositories. So those are the one it's what is installed on your project in the vendor dir. You can also just use the show command there to quickly see which exact versions of everything you have. Afterwards, if there is if the log file exists, we load that. then your custom repositories for the project, followed by the ones on the machine, like on the user config, and finally packages by default. So it just goes like top down when trying to find packages, and the first match is usually picked. Like if it finds it in many repositories, it's going to take the one that's the highest. Okay, then you have dependency resolution. So we take the dependency solver, we take the request. So the request contains all those install requests, updates. Well, it could be removed, but we don't actually do that. And then we take the package pool, you shake it a bit, like, you know, and very complex stuff happens. Sometimes it goes wrong, but most of the time it goes good lately. And you get a list of operations. So operations are just like do an install of this package, do an update, or a removal. Now, there are a few options that affect this process, like the execution of the operations, and I just want to highlight a few that can be interesting. The prefer source flag is like it forces installation from git clone or svn checkout instead of using the zip archives. This can be useful if for some reason the GitHub zip archives are borked. I don't know why it happens, but it does. So in that case, you can always use prefer source to fall back on the git clone, and that's a bit slower, but it works usually. When GitHub is completely down, it doesn't work, but that's not a too common occurrence. So yeah. Now, since yesterday, there is prefer dist, which is the opposite. So because by default, dev packages are always installed from source, like with a git clone. The reason for that is that the updates are way faster, because and updates on the dev versions are more frequent than actual tags. So this probably makes sense, but yeah, it's hard to say what's best for everyone. So that's why we now have both options. And if you just want zips all the time, you can use prefer dist. Probably we should add a shorter alias or some config options so you can put that have it by default. But for now, it's only that. Then you can use dry run if you just want to know what is going to be updated, but you're not really sure if your version constraints are fine and you don't really know. Just use dry run, then it does the resolution but stops there. And finally, there's the verbose flag, which for dev versions, well, not really just for dev versions, like for any version that is a git clone, it will show you all the commits that got pulled in. So since the last time you ran an update to the current update, you get this list of commits, which is kind of cool when you're following the master branch and just want to know what's new. It's a good way to keep up to date. Okay, and then finally, it's just gonna write the log file if it's not there, or you run update. So there is a little trick, because some people just complain because they run composer install and they get this output there saying your log file is out of sync, because they changed something in the JSON, but they don't want to run an update because they're not sure if it's gonna break their project and whatever. So you can use this little hack, which is doing composer update nothing. What this does effectively is it does an update and it says only update the package called nothing, which most likely won't exist, right? So it won't update anything. But you can also use that to restrict an update. So if you just want to update Symfony but not the bundles or just one particular bundle, just run composer update, give the one or more packages you actually will want to update, and it will just update those. Then yeah, the autoloader is generated. By default, it will generate it in like just the standard PSR0 stuff for the packages configured like that. But for production, I highly recommend that you, in your like deployment script or build script or whatever you call it, which you should have a script for that, by the way. You can call this dump autoload command with the optimize flag. That generates a full class map for everything. Like all the packages get turned into class map autoload, which is really way faster than the PSR0 stuff. So PSR0 is nice for development. It's convenient because you add a class, it just works. You don't need to regenerate the class map. But really, like for production, try to do this because I ran profiling on, I think on just like Symfony on a kind of hello world page, so just the framework. This was, I mean, the autoloader was like up to 30% of the actual request time. So I know it's just like 30% of the framework overhead, so it's not much if you consider that you have a full application running, but still, like if you can, shave off a few milliseconds for free, just do it. And if you use Capifony, it's now done by default. So finally, you get the post install and post update hooks. Those are used a lot. I mean, they're used by the Symfony Standard Edition. But again, for deployment, sometimes it's painful because you might not want to do a clear cache with the dev environment. Maybe you want to tweak it a bit or have different settings. So all you can do is just pass this --no script, and that will disable everything. And then you can call the commands by hand, which would be annoying if you have to do it every time, but if it's in your deployment script, I think it's fine because you just write it once and that's it. Okay, yes?
Is there a way to run bash scripts from the auto commands?
There is, I guess it's not done yet, but it should be. So if you want to help, that might be something you can help with. No, it's basically we need it for something which I can't recall now, but oh yeah, because we wanted to add a composer test command, or because that can be useful to just like have a. If you could define a test, like the script that should run your tests in the composer JSON, then you could do just composer test, and that runs the test suite of the project without, it's most of the time it's just running PHP unit is enough, but in some cases, like people use different stuff, so this might be a good way of having just universal test command that runs everywhere.
Well, I was thinking more along the lines of the post install and post update.
Yeah, no, I know it would also be useful for that, but it's just we really need it for the test command, so that's why we need the feature, and once it's done, it should work for the scripts as well. So, all right. Finally, I just want to do some little troubleshooting, primer. If you have a package on Packagist and it just doesn't update anymore for some reason, which seems to happen to people every second day, according to my inbox, just run this composer validate command. It took me a while to write it, so please run it. That should give you if there is a typo in the JSON, if there is any weird thing, it should pick it up. It's not complete though, so if you're bored, you can also just go in the validate command file, check the to-dos. There are a few things that could be better, but it catches most problems. So usually when it doesn't update, it's because of a JSON typo, honestly. So I mentioned that already before, but if GitHub is broken, just use prefer source. And if you get just random weird stuff, which happens, first thing, please run self-update, because that gives you the latest version. Especially, I don't know, how many of you run it from PHP homebrew thing? You know, the homebrew. You didn't even know homebrew existed? Or? Okay, I don't know. There is a homebrew package for Mac users that installs Composer, but it always installs the last tag, which is it tends to be quite outdated. So I should do more releases, but so self-update always gives you the latest release down to the minute. So that's good. Then if that still doesn't work, you can also check your settings, because I don't know why, but many people manage to just not run the installer script and download the FAR file directly. I don't know how they do it, because we removed all the instructions from the website. So I guess it's some outdated blog post or something, but it's just you have some settings that we cannot catch in the FAR file, because they break the FAR file, so the FAR cannot even start. We just can't catch them. So you really should run the install script. It just does some checks and tells you if some setting is not correct. So that's a good step. Updating your dependencies also, just sometimes it helps, because we also do get bug reports about there's a post-install script that fails because it fails in Symfony. So the script is from Symfony, but it fails when people run Composer install, so they blame me. So updating tends to help, because you get the latest version, so hopefully the bug is fixed. If you really have big problems, which still happens sometimes, we're really working hard on not having to do that, because that's it's the kind of cache clear of Composer. But yeah, even nowadays in Symfony, it happens that you have to run cache clear just to get rid of weird stuff. So, as soon as you cache things, there's always a possibility that something goes bad. So just delete everything, start over, tends to help. And if it doesn't, now feel free to report a bug, but just with the full verbose output would be nice, because when we get it's not working in 2 lines, sometimes it's enough, but usually not. All right, thanks. Now I think there is a lot of time left for questions,
So is there any initiative to integrate Composer more tightly with PHP itself?
Not really.
No.
I'm not against it, but I'm busy enough as it is, to not go into politics. If you feel like doing that, you can just go on the PHP internals mailing list and ask if they're interested. I know some of them are, but it's just, I don't think it's at a point yet where acceptance is big enough in the old guys, because it's kind of an old boys club a bit. So they tend to not be very progressive.
So what kind of reassurance can we tell, say, our bosses?
2 chocolate.
Packages will be around tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, I'm just gonna throw chocolates first, and good question.
You don't even want to answer that. Just keep throwing on.
So the question was, what assurance do you have that it's still gonna be there tomorrow? I don't know. It's open source, right? So at least the code is out there. If I don't feel like paying for the server bills anymore, but
I don't know. Is there a donate button?
No, no. I mean, yeah. No, there's no donate button. But once we do the mirroring thing, like mirroring all the packages from GitHub and stop abusing their bandwidth, we'll need like servers at least and bandwidth. So I think at that point we'll have like enough of a kind of distributed infrastructure with enough parties involved that it should be a bit reassuring. But I mean, at some level you always have like a madman kind of in control of stuff that either you trust the guy or you don't, right? That's the case with all of open source, I think. So, anyone else? I got plenty of chocolates. Okay, you go first.
I got a workflow question.
So the question is, in terms of workflow, after you get a new log file, should you run install or update? I guess.
I mean, obviously, update is like what you don't want them to do.
Okay, so yes, you should run install, and no, it should not blow up, but. It's I think it got way better since the patch I did like 2 weeks ago. Which, if you use the latest version, it should really be better. Like you shouldn't have so many problems anymore. But there might still be cases where I think I know of one case where if the master branch alias changes like from 2.1x to 2.2x and you have one already installed, I think there is a bug there. But yeah, it's at some point it should all be fixed, and like running install should not require any weird steps like deleting everything.
So for you define packages in your Composer JSON file, and then those packages have their own Composer JSON file. So if in those packages somebody else adds another requirement, and then in your root package you pull an update, it never parses that extra I guess requirement that you added. Is that a bug, or is it supposed to be like that?
No, that's definitely a bug. Like it should work. It works in many cases, I think, but it might be that in some. Was that using the master branch?
Yeah, you've got your master and then all your vendors.
Mm-hmm.
You add a requirement. Most of the time, I just have to either delete that folder and then have Composer essentially go out and parse all that stuff.
Yeah, I know why that happens, but not sure like how easy it is to fix. Because essentially, like the problem is that as I said, for dev version, since it's the same version, the solver itself is not doing the update because it sees them as already installed. So we do that like after the solver pass, we detect that there is a new like commit reference for this package, and we force an update to the new one. But if the requirements changed in the new one, it doesn't pick it up. So that's why I think if you run it twice, the second time it's like you get the new package installed, and when you run update again, then it's gonna read the new requirements and it should work.
I'll try that.
But it's quite hard to fix actually. But it's definitely a bug. I mean, it should be fixed if we can.
You mentioned the pre-install command and the pre-update command. You said, well, you can't really do much with it.
Yeah.
What was the use case that you modeled when you guys added that feature?
Completeness.
What have you seen it used for?
No, I mean, it's just if you add the post one, you might as well add the pre one. But no, I'm not sure. Like, I guess there are some use cases where you might want to do like some pre-setup stuff, but I really don't know. Like, but you still get a chocolate. That's fine. It's a nice one. It's got a mountain on it. Okay, I think there was a question over there. Yeah.
Can you specify the disk and the source on the package level? Like similar to your dash for disk, can you specify that in the composer JSON?
I'm not sure what you mean. I mean, so you mean specifying it and then it would, like...
So instead of being able to specify for a package,
Yeah.
I want that to always install.
Aha, okay. No, because I think that should be left up to the users, because like some people have problems with Git can't go through their firewall or whatever. So I think we need to leave that up to the consumer of the package.
So the create project commands that like Symfony itself offers, is that grab the composer JSON file to use straight off of packages? Is that how it works? Or like if you want to set up your own composer file create project, blah blah blah, how would you go about doing that instead of using a composer JSON you have locally?
Not sure I got your question.
So if you've got composer JSON file locally, you run composer install, put it on your packages, cool. Symfony offers a install purely via composer. You just install composer and run a create project command on it, and then it pulls out everything that place. How does that work?
Oh, okay. So that just basically you give it a package name. It's gonna pull that, it does an install of just that package in the directory you gave it, and after it's done, unpacking that, it runs a composer install in the project. Essentially, it's just a kind of two-pass install. But it's really nothing special. It just reuses the whole install stuff. So
that project on packages then has its own composer JSON.
Yeah.
Any project.
Yeah, exactly.
You can create project on, or any package on packages you can run create project on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can actually use that. Symfony uses it to bootstrap a project, but you can also use it to start developing on something. If you want to, just create a patch for some project, you can easily do create project, that the name, and you get a Git clone of it with all the vendors installed. So it's a convenient one-liner for doing that.
If you've got a project that's on GitHub that doesn't exist on packages, how do you, obviously you can specify repositories, but you have to create a package definition in order to pull down to GitHub between your vendors?
I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
So the scenario is, there's a library on GitHub you want to use, it doesn't exist on packages, you know what the source URL on GitHub is.
If anyone else has a question, I'll... No? Okay. Well then, thank you. Please leave feedback.